when time and anticipation meet.
It's down to the hundredths of a second in the barrel race.
True competitors take the reins.
That's how tough it gets.
As the summer sun sets on Mitchell, South Dakota, long days meet the minuscule fractions of a second, separating average and extraordinary.
And everybody comes with the same ideas to win the rodeo, so just gotta put your game face on.
In a crowd of cowboys and cowgirls, this game face a little longer than most.
Dooley is very ambitious and nobody's really gonna beat him, and he always has to be a nose ahead, so.
17-year-old Dooley bends with the beauty, grace, and power of a prima ballerina and the precision and speed of a race car driver.
We compete in the barrel race. It's a clover leaf pattern. You start and stop an electric eye, so it's all out to the hundredths in seconds, and pretty much the fastest horse wins.
And while Wendy Betchen gives all the credit to Dooley, it's their bond that breaks boundaries.
I always go with expectations to win the rodeo, because if you came not thinking you're gonna win, you maybe should have just stayed in the pickup.
Dooley's spunk and spirit,
He's just got a big heart.
match Wendy's mettle and moxie. On the outside, his bedazzled reins and her fire-red hair. But for a team that measures the speed of life in decimals, the stopwatch stopped 3 years ago, when the unexpected barreled into life's plans.
We left home the 4th of July weekend and went to some rodeos.
Time doesn't heal the pain of the memories.
We were having a great 4th of July. Our last stop was Fort Pierre. I got up in the morning and he wasn't in his pen, and kind of went on a search for him as thinking he got out. And when some people came up and said, no, the gate's shut, he didn't shut the gate behind him, it kind of dawned on me that maybe there was more to it than just him getting out.
Wendy calls the sheriff's office and hops in her truck to start her own search. Tires turning corners, hoping to find Dooley. Behind the wheel, the wheels turning in her mind.
When I first started looking for him, I really didn't think of somebody taking him.
Wendy makes the rounds all around Fort Pierre.
When I drove back by this house, this lady gets out and she comes running back out to the street and stops me, and she's kind of freaking out. And she's like, oh my gosh, you know, Flint Dahl had your horse and he's drunk and it's all cut up and it's bloody. And by that time it just kind of shell-shocked me.
They discover Dooley.
He was in a pen and rope burned and hurt and sweaty and no life in him, no energy. I just remember his eyes being very down, and he was not a happy camper at the time, standing on 2 legs.
The legs that inspired his name. As a colt, when Wendy first met Dooley, his body, decidedly more legs than body, determined his name, Dooley, after a Dooley pickup with 6 wheels instead of 4. But now, only 2 of those precious and prize-winning legs can barely work.
He had a lot of tendon damage. Tendons are like a rubber band. They have elasticity, so when they are severed, this front leg was severed in 5 spots within the tendon. The back leg was rope burned through the skin, through the fatty tissue, everything down to the tendon sheath.
But his strength inside.
His little attitude right there.
And out.
The fact that he was in good shape probably saved a lot of his body from what could have happened.
And Wendy's equestrian empathy.
I can relate. I had ACL surgery in 2009, so I kind of had an idea of how things feel.
Got Dooley on track.
We knew he'd be sore, and it's just like rehab for us. It hurts, but sometimes you got to do a little more each time. In that process, we slowly built him up to, it first started out to walking as much as a quarter of a mile. 3 times a day I'd come home for my noon hour and walk him a quarter of a mile.
And these athletes decided to prove the naysayers wrong.
I believe that our horses, and I'm sure any barrel racer you talk to will say the same thing, they're like athletes.
Last year, with each horseshoe step, proving success takes more toil and try than just sheer luck. The duo returned to the ring, placing 7th their first night out, taking first the next. And then on the same weekend this year that robbed them of their freedom to compete 3 years ago, they returned to Fort Pierre, winning second with their split-second decisions.
And I think that every good barrel horse has a little nasty attitude or their own personality. His seems to be a little ornery, and that's, I think, what makes him big-hearted and have a lot of try to go on even in bad situations.
With his attitude comes inspiration.
Definitely a lot of inspiration. This whole process has made me realize a lot of things, how good people can be. It was crazy the number of good people that came out of one bad thing.
Or that undefinable belief that makes every athlete aspire for greatness and fuels the competitive spirit.
I have always been a faithful person, but when this happened, you kind of get in that poor me mode and you're like, why me, why? And I should have been looking at what we had accomplished already instead of what had happened to us. And definitely the process of sticking together and getting through it, and anything's possible, which I'm not sure I always believed.
We'll go to Rapid City, South Dakota. Here's Wendy Beshop.
Dooley proves where the body may bend, the spirit never breaks.
How about 16:08 on the run? 16:08 for Wendy tonight.